wonderful good morning again, everyone, to the Recovering Perfectionist, the series which is about the isolation opportunity and this beautiful heap of opportunities that we're kind of afforded at the moment. Most of us in a lot of places in Australia, we're very blessed to be in a position where this is actually an opportunity, and you know, there's lots of stuff going on and all that sort of thing. But yeah, I'd love to chat with you, Naomi, about how we can make our homes absolutely beautiful. But I'll hand over to you first, just to tell us a bit about who you are and what you do and your amazing business and where we can find you and all of those sorts of things, because you've got credibility coming out your ears. So tell us about you.
That's very kind. Well, I'm Naomi. I am a designer, a renovator, a stylist, an educator, and pretty much what I do every day, because I'm really blessed. What I get to do every day is create beautiful spaces, inspire others to do so, and then teach them how to do it. So that's me in a nutshell, realistically. And I do that through all different ways. I write books, I have a channel, I teach courses, I work privately with clients on big projects. So I truly feel like a kid in a candy shop when I think about my life from a day-to-day basis. I need to say, it's not always been like that, you know. Right. It was a decision I consciously made about 18 months ago that I was no longer going to do anything in business that didn't fill my heart. And since then, you know, I literally can say every day I create, inspire, teach. That's
beautiful
it.
Things.
It is such a beautiful thing. It is such a beautiful thing, because I'm such a massive believer. There's so much science behind the concept that our environment actually affects us at multiple levels. So it affects us at a cellular level, psychological, physiological, emotional, cognitive. Like, it affects us on so many levels. And I feel, you know, when our isolation first hit, and a lot of people were in despair and, you know, really worried, and naturally, because it is a worldwide pandemic. But I was like, well, how can I help? How can I assist? And I realized that I can help by just continuing to do what I do, because when we're surrounded by amazing spaces, we have the ability to make people feel better. And so I figured I was no longer doom and gloom. I was not going to be like oh my gosh, let's all go into bunkers and put helmets on and eat out of tin cans. I'm like, let's turn inward. Let's turn inward. Let's start to reconnect with our spaces rather than us live in our houses. Let's start to live with our houses.
I love it. And I love, so quickly, you and I recorded a podcast, I think in January or thereabouts, and we talked about so many different things, but the one thing that really stuck in my mind that I keep talking to everyone else about, like, I told it to Naomi on my podcast, and she was talking about, I probably am going to say the wrong word, but it was space medicine?
Space medicine.
It is space medicine. And I was like, that just made so much sense to me. So can you maybe just recap on what that is, and then we'll jump into what we can be doing right now in our homes?
Absolutely. So space medicine, it's grounded in heavy research. So this isn't, you know, the term is something that the concept of it is something that I've pulled together, but there's like decades, like centuries of research in environmental psychology, in bay biology, in vibrational medicine that talks about how light, color, nature, texture, how our spaces around us, they affect us, literally our cells. Do you know what's so super interesting? Our cells are actually affected at a microscopic level by the cells around them. So even at a cellular level, our cells are infected by their environment. And at a macro level, we're infected by our environment. And so there's all these amazing, huge empirical studies. So not where we're like epic empirical studies that talk about how it affects our temperature, our heart rate, our blood pressure, our releases of endorphins and adrenalines, and, you know, all these sorts of things. And then there's another pile of research that basically connects that all these different things in our body that are affected by our space actually affect things that are really important to most of us. Our ability to connect with others, our ability to communicate, our ability to think clearly, productivity, efficiency, overall well-being. So when you connect the two dots, you go, holy dooly.
It's really important.
I can create a space that can make me like badass more efficient and badass more creative, calmer with my kids, more connected with my partner. Like, what am I doing? Like, this is amazing. When you break it down like that, you're like, man, I need all my spaces to be dripping in this stuff. Hey.
Exactly. And you can feel it, can't you? When you walk into a space that feels heavy and gross, and like my big thing is low ceilings, and not that I've got high ceilings, but you know, when you go into a place and it just feels heavy and dark and the low ceilings, and I just feel like cowering sort of thing. Like, it's such an instant physical response.
It actually is a physical response. Hey,
right?
It is actually a physical response, and part of it is part of space medicine is all about one of the biggest ways you can bring space medicine into your home is connecting it with nature. Because there was this amazing study done, a huge study done where they looked at people that had their gallbladders removed, and they were equal morbidity, equal age, all of that sort of study stuff. And they put half of the group with a view of the mountains and half of the group in a room with no windows. And the group that had a view of the mountains, every single patient on average was discharged a day or a day and a half before the others.
Wow.
Because of the endorphins and the repair mechanisms that are released when we get to view what we call fractals, recurring fractals in nature. Like when you drive up to the beach and you see the recurring waves and you go, or when you get to see a hill vista, or that is actually chemical. A bit out of control for this early in the conversation. I was in tomorrow I'm about to release the first room on my heritage renovation, and I had styled it as a bedroom, and then I've changed it into my main office. And this is the whole physical thing, maybe too early for this, but I sat down in the chair the other day for the first time, and I leant back and I messaged two of my girlfriends, and I've gone, this nearly is as good as sex right now in this room. Like,
amazing.
It felt so good. And so it is completely physical. We have the power to do that for ourselves.
With a space.
So
what are some of the day-to-day symptoms if we're living in a place that doesn't do that for us? If we feel like it's either if it's too messy, or if the colours are wrong, or if the decor is old, or if there's something that's not working, how do we know that it could be our home that's doing that to us?
It's so interesting you say that. I was doing an online consultation yesterday with a client in Sydney, and I was listening to her talk about her space, and the overwhelming word that came up for me was she's stuck. She was stuck. She was a powerful, amazing woman, and her energy was stuck. She was stuck. She was confused about the way forward. There was too much visual clutter, and at the same time visual boredom, and there were no elements that connected nature except for one or two pot plants in her house. There were no elements that brought in the things that fed her and her innate need for space medicine. So I think some of the characteristics might be inability to focus, feeling less efficient, having a feeling of stuckness, but not knowing what you're stuck about. You know that feeling where you're you're kind of like, I've got the shits and I don't know why.
Right.
Yeah. It's kind of like I feel stuck. I don't know why. I don't know what's next. And so, there can be multiple reasons for all of these things, but your space absolutely has an impact on it.
Yeah, it so does. And so there's obviously a lot of us spending a lot more time indoors at the moment. Me, not much has changed, to be honest, because I work from home and I'm literally sitting at what is my desk and my painting table and my dining table right now, with my lounge room over there and my kitchen over there, and everything else is upstairs. And it feels so good. Like, this is a beautiful space that I've curated for myself in the last couple of months. So not a great deal has changed for some of us, but there are a lot of people who are now working from home, and or they have their kids home. and all of that sort of thing. And I've had a few conversations with people recently, and I obviously do the organization stuff with business, but I've had a heap of people reach out and say, like, I just need to organize my life. And it's there. And often it's like, I've got piles of paperwork everywhere, or I've got like there's stuff everywhere, or I've been moving around a lot lately. And it's actually, when you look at it, there's this massively physical element of it, that they're feeling this sort of heaviness and, like you said, the stuckness, and I can't move forward until I blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
What's going on with that sort of thing? Have you come across this in the last sort of 6 weeks as well?
Yes. There's this whole, I've been talking to actually a few clients about it. There's this whole stripping and purging thing that's happening.
Yeah.
Like there's this whole, is that required in my business? Do I need that at home? Why have I kept that pile of paper? Like there seems to be this tearing back and this peeling back to expose quite a rawness, which is interesting, I'm finding at this time. And so I find that people are talking about it in a physical manner, like, oh my God, my stuff's there and this is here, and and it's like people, it's if things are clumping around us deliberately to make us then choose to purge or not. It is like the universe is doing a forced purge in our...
Yeah, right. And there's lots of things popping up. Even I think it's the Salvos or Vinnies were doing this 14-day declutter challenge, and like everyone's doing these declutter challenges. And I was sort of thinking maybe it was because people have got more time at home. They're like, I'll finally go through my wardrobe, or I'll finally whatever. And a few times that I've been to Kmart, for example, and there are people going out with trolley fulls of homewares, the only homeware store that's been open. I'm like, oh, this is great. People are like decking out their houses. They're totally going nuts with this sort of thing, because it's one of the things that we can do because we're at home all the time. But I don't know that it's even necessarily just the time thing. Like, I've got time to finally purge. It's that energy around, well, might as well, because there's some new normal coming, and let's clear the decks.
Yeah, and I think it's also that we're being forced to turn into our intimate space. Like, we've been literally forced to turn inward into what is around us. And you can be in a room and not see a room for decades.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think the fear that has been in the world has maybe caused people to stop for moments and actually look around them and reconnect. I think it's not so much about the time we're spending in our homes. I think it's probably more about the emotions that are coming up and the reconnecting with something that maybe feels stable.
Yeah. And just talking about purging then, what do you think? I've done a massive purge about 1.5 years ago that lasted for about 6 months, and the final thing I did was all my box of sentimental stuff. But that had massive knock-on effects to the rest of my life. Do you see that often when people do big changes in their home, that it's kind of
massive.
Like it's the first step in making other big changes, and it's kind of a catalyst, and that first step of getting brave enough and then saying, okay, like that went really well. What else do I need to get out of my life, whether it's physical or people or whatever? Do you see that a lot?
Absolutely. And I think there's also the element of, you know, when you're about to like stand up with your big girl pants on, right? You want to know that your big girl pants are in place. You don't want to know that the elastic is all crappy and they're going to fall down around your ankles when you stand up.
Yep.
There's an element of knowing that your foundations or where you come from are solid. There's not that when you get home you're faced with a pile of this or a pile of that or a pile of this.
God, so
when you go into your office, like when you go into your office, instead of being like, remember this, do the pile, do this, do that, or wherever your office might be, instead you go in and it's like you are set. Your elastic is in your big girl pants. You can stand up and everything's going to be okay.
Yes.
I think there's sometimes it can be the start and it can also be something that can empower, because generally it's in private. And so you feel that little element of confidence, and it's one of those exponential things. You've done it. Oh yeah, I'm feeling better now. And it's like a knock on, like an up-leveling knock on.
Yeah, so true. That's so true. And it is done in a way that kind of feels safe. But once you've gotten rid of stuff, and I mean, for me, it was, I reckon I probably got rid of at least 50% of my things.
Amazing.
From furniture to books to clothes. God, I had so many clothes. It was embarrassing. To just everything, and the sentimental stuff and things that I was holding on to, and realized that I'd been carrying some things for 20 or 25 years since I was a teenager.
Literally, hey.
I didn't get any joy out of them. But then there were some things that I had kept since I was a kid that I still got so much joy out of, reading letters from pen pals across the world who I like, do you know what I mean? Like little things like that I would definitely keep.
Yeah.
But it had meaning again. And it actually filled me up in so many ways to go, God, there were all these people all around the world who love me, who I've completely forgotten about. Like, why am I worried about people who don't like me? For God's sake. It just had such big kind of ripple effects of going, okay, yeah, and exactly, like it was almost like an accidental getting my ducks in a row.
Yes.
Now I know who's who in the zoo, where everything is, what's actually important to me. And it kind of came from, I think, many realizations of the value stuff. Like, this is important to me, and these are my true values. And then you look through that lens at everything else in your life.
100%.
Because
when your environment, when your environment is poised, ready to take the next step. So when your environment is at a point where it's providing you a platform, or some might say a fortress, or an armor, or a stage, or whatever it might need to be for you, then it allows you to step into it. You know, whether it's a fortress to retreat to, whether it's a stage to sing on, whatever it is.
It gives me goosebumps.
You know, like and then the thing that I want everyone to remember, you do not need to be a designer, and you do not need to be a stylist to begin the steps to creating that. You have the power.
Yeah. So tell me, what are the steps then for people who are like, oh, I'm not creative, or I have no taste? You hear those sort of sentences all the time. You're like, oh my gosh, really?
You know what people get really stuck on, and it's totally media related. People get stuck on what their style is. And I'm like, you don't have to give it a name. Don't give it a name. It can be, I was talking to a client the other day, and I've gone, let's just find and I didn't want to say, you know, what your style was. I'm like, let's pretend your style is alpha style.
Right.
And, you know, just random
name.
And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, it doesn't have to have a name.
Yeah.
It's you. It is you. It is about what you connect with, what tells your story, what colors resonate with you, what brings your vibration up. And you will be able to, I get that sometimes bringing it together, people do need help, obviously. Like, that's why most of my students study with me, because they're like, I know, most people will say, I know what I don't like.
Right.
Most people, nearly everyone will be like, I can look at things and go, love, don't love. Love, don't love, easily. It's sometimes just in the bringing it together that people often need assistance, realistically. And so start the journey by literally going, oh, don't love, used to love, never love, or don't love, never loved, and love, it's staying,
And it's a dynamic thing, right? You don't have to make a decision and then leave your house like that all the time. I'm addicted to moving furniture and moving things around, and I'm in a rental at the moment, so I can't put many things on the wall except for what there were holes of. But I'm like, thank God, because there's a lot of stuff going on in here, and I'm really happy with some blank space over there or whatever. But moving things around, and you don't have to kind of get it to a point and then it stays like that forever, right?
I think that's some of the fear, right? I think, you know, I understand when people are looking at renovating kitchens and bathrooms. I cannot tell you enough, get professional help, because they are a 10 to 15 to 20-year investment. But the minute you paint, you can paint over it.
Right.
The minute you wallpaper, you can rip it off, because most of them nowadays, even if they're not removable, they're easy to remove.
Right.
When you buy a piece of art, you can sell it on Gumtree if you hate it in a month.
Yeah.
Like, it is all, you know, when you create something, like I've got a book coming out later this year, and it's all about weathered to wonderful. It's all about taking things in our home that was weathered and maybe dated, and looking at it with different eyes, refreshing it in some way that you choose to love it again, or someone else will love it again. You know? Because we do need to, without sounding like a greenie, But we do need to be really conscious about our landfill and about our waste. And I think maybe part of COVID is to turn us inward to find the love again in so much of the things we have.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if not, let someone else love it.
Exactly. And let go of some of the things. Like I see a lot of people, mainly just in my personal world and that sort of thing, who have things on display that they've had on display for 20, 30, 40, 50 years.
My mum.
Just because like someone gave you a picture frame 50 years ago, you don't have to keep displaying it if you don't want to display it, sort of thing. But there's other ways of honoring the memory, but also not feeling like you're heavy with everyone else's shit in your house.
Do you know what's so interesting is I swear that this does link into like one of my best friends is Denise Stoffel Thomas, and so many of the conversations we have, because you know she's all about money archetypes and money mindset, that she'll often, like, I think a lot of what we keep and don't keep is attached to how we've been brought up to think of money.
Yeah, you know, so true. Yeah.
I was brought up to think that money was scarce. Hey, like that there was never enough. It doesn't grow on trees. We can't afford to waste. Like I could write a thesis on all the phrases that my parents said. They did a brilliant job, but that was just their archetype. Yeah. I think some of that whole getting rid of things, often it's people, you know, that are like, oh, that costs money. That someone invested. But what if one day the world ends and I have no money and I need that photo frame?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like I think that sometimes we're paralyzed by that. And I think other times we're paralyzed by the fear of getting it wrong. Instagram has a lot to answer.
And magazines and all of that sort of thing. I spent years, I think we might have talked about it on the last podcast actually, but I spent probably a year or so just going through Pinterest and trying to find like the perfect lounge room. And I kept saying to my best friend, I just want it to be like whites and pinks and greens, but I'm not sure if I want silver or gold, or I just want, and she's like, what are you talking about? This is insane. Like that's a curated space that no one actually lives in.
It's so
make it like your stuff and put things around that you love. But I was exactly like, I was worried, like if I paint the wall and I hate it, well then I've wasted all that money on paint and I've wasted the time, and I hate painting, so I've also wasted like my energy doing something I don't want to do, which stopped me from doing anything. And she ended up then just pulling my entire house apart and putting up all the things that I loved, including things that were stashed in the back of the linen press or in the kitchen cupboards that were beautiful glassware or beautiful linens and that sort of thing. And we put them in the bookshelf instead of the ugly ornament that someone gave me 20 years ago that I hated.
And why do we keep it?
Why do we keep it?
The silly thing that we bought after way too many cocktails on a beach in Indonesia. You know, and it looked really cute when it was in the environment, and you convinced yourself it didn't look touristy because it was the least touristy of the stuff that was there. Yeah. And then you got it home and you're like, whoa, it's like a frog doing a hula, you know, like
it stands out a bit.
I'm a massive fan for bringing home curated items. Like one of my favorite things is doing the shopping tours overseas, because I love some of the organic elements and homewares that we can sort of bring back in, but at the same time I don't want to look like a souvenir shop at home.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it's okay if someone gives you a gift and you don't like it. You don't have to feel guilty to display it. If it makes you angry or upset or low vibe every time you see it, and you're like, I hate that wall hanging, or I hate that whatever. But what if one day they'll notice if it's not up?
And it's okay.
They don't. Like you've enjoyed the thought and you've enjoyed the
you enjoyed the receiving when they went here.
Exactly. And there's a gratitude thing attached to it. But it's I found that was the hardest thing. Like, oh no, but so-and-so's great auntie's cousin's brother knitted that. We can't get rid of it. It's the ugliest thing you've ever seen in your life, and no one would put it up in their house, but we can't get rid of it. She's like, why?
Oh, you can get rid of it. You know what? My mum for my 40th, she thought, which was a little while ago, she wanted to get me something really special for the home, which is a crazy thing to do, realistically. And she bought me this outrageously expensive little trinket box that was, you know, from David Jones, and it cost hundreds of dollars, and it was hand sculpted silver, and it was quite modern and cute. But at the same time, it took me a year to shift that guilt of putting it in the cupboard.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, it's from my mum,
Yeah.
It's like from mum. But every time I looked at it, I went, oh. Because it's stunning. It just didn't suit my home.
Yeah, right.
Just didn't suit my home.
Yeah.
So that's one of those things where you go, I'm going to keep that, but it doesn't mean I have to have it out.
Right, exactly. It still means something when I open my cupboard and occasionally get that special piece of jewelry out of it.
Yeah. Or you know what you could do even for little trinkets is use them as containers in drawers.
Right.
So for things like if someone bought you a bowl from what's the stuff you drink in Fiji?
Kava.
Someone bought you a kava bowl. Look at me. Someone bought you a kava bowl and you're like, I really hate the kava bowl. Put your hairbands in it in your
right. Yeah. Use it for something practical.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
paint
100%. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Love it. So top 3 tips for we're spending time at home and we're like, ugh, I've got time to do something about this, but I don't really know where to start. What do you get rid of stuff first? Do you bring in stuff you love first? What do you do?
Do you know what I would do first? I would get rid of your clutter. There's a million places that you can go to work out your declutter challenge. But from a styling perspective, I would choose maybe 4 spaces. So maybe your living, dining, master bedroom, kitchen. And I would take all of your accessories and all of your books and all of your vases and all your plants, and I would go put them on the outdoor table. Yeah. So everything's done. And then I would pretend that that's a shop.
Yes.
And so then I'd be like, oh, I don't like the look of that actually in the shop. I'm not going to buy it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the look of that. Then restyle your home from your shop on your back table. Mm-hmm. If you don't love it, it doesn't go back inside. Mm. And then you'll find out where your holes are, once you've put it all back in. Yeah. And it's amazing if you try to take it from one space to the next, it'll never look as good and it will never fit. If you take it out of the house, have blank spaces, and you just see everything moved around on the table and you pretend you're going shopping. Mm-hmm. So you go shopping in your outdoor area. Another thing people could do, because I think as of today, I'm not sure when the podcast will hear this, but as of today, you can have small groups. The book libraries on the side of the road.
Yep.
Yeah. And so if you live in a really small area and you know your neighbors well, you guys could set up a table, bring all your homewares out, disinfect them naturally, and then you guys could make a deal that you all take back in the amount of pieces that you took out.
Such a good idea. I often will do, I'm sick of all these things and I can't be bothered putting them in my car and driving them to the salvos or something, so I just take a photo and put them out the front. Yeah. Put on Facebook Marketplace or something like that. Free. Here's the address. First in, best dress. I don't care who it gets.
No brawls out the front.
Nice way of doing it. And other people do it as well. And you're like, yeah, cool.
Absolutely.
You've got some beautiful little coffee tables or cushions or things that I would probably I didn't really need them, but I love them. And I was like, it's $5 and it's from my next door neighbor or someone down the street. Of course. So it's so good. And then if it doesn't fit, I'll put it back out for free.
Post-COVID, a couple of years ago, I did, and people could totally do this post-COVID, I did a homewares charity shop.
Yeah.
Not as in a shop, as in I invited 50 women over, and everyone had to bring over 10 pieces. Mm-hmm. And, we bought them all for a $2 donation off one another. Yeah. And so my back entertaining area and my back deck looked like this amazing homeware store.
How beautiful.
And it was just everyone's stuff. And there were handbags and jewelry, no clothes, but handbags and jewelry and homewares and, candles that you burnt once and you're like, oh, that scent's not for me.
Yeah.
So I think post-COVID, not right now.
I love that idea. So good. I love that idea. And I love I think it's so important. If there's one thing that I have taken away again, is that it's not just so that people who come over are like, oh, your house is nice. Or it's not so that you just walk in and you're like, oh, this is pretty. It actually does affect your efficiency,
100%.
Your productivity, your communication style, your entire vibe just by spending so much time in here. It's got to be, it's got to work for us, right?
Oh my gosh, it's got to work for you. And just because you might be feeling low vibe and it's not working for you, it doesn't mean you need to throw the baby in the bathwater out. Like, empty the space, rearrange some furniture, restyle. It costs you nothing but your investment in time.
Oh, so good. I just want to go, like, I look around and I go, I actually really love my home at the moment, so I won't spend any more time doing it. But it's so exciting to go, oh yeah, I've got some more throw rugs upstairs. I might swap them out from summer to the winter ones and bring them downstairs now, and little things like that.
Or in winter, we're going into winter, so put more rugs on the floor. Like, layer your rugs up so they get bigger.
How delicious. So much opportunity.
I know, there's so much to do.
There is. Awesome. Thank you so much, Naomi. It's always so awesome having a chat with you.
It's a pleasure.
On the podcast show notes, we'll put links and everything. But for anyone who is watching live or watching the replay, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you? Your website, Facebook page?
Insta. Just head over to Insta, Naomi Findlay Official. Send me a message. Show me what you're doing in your homes, or put it up on your story and tag me. I'd love to see what you guys are doing.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. And
I will.
Everyone listening has had a bit of an inspired boost to go and do whatever they need to do to make their home feel super delish, and enjoy the rest of isolation, which is probably by and large over mostly, which is good, but
fingers crossed.
Still a few things going on. So yeah, awesome. Thanks again, Naomi. I'll talk to you soon.
Absolute pleasure. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Thanks so much for tuning in, everyone. I'm Claire Riley. It's been an absolute pleasure presenting this show for you. If you would like to stay connected, I do run a beautiful online Facebook group community called the Recovering Perfectionists. Pretty easy to find us. We're a group of several thousand over on Facebook, so come and have a look. And if you've got any suggestions about the show, if you love it, I would love you to head over to the iTunes podcast tab and give us a rating and review. And as always, I'd love to hear your suggestions about anyone who you think we should have on the show, or any topics that you'd love us to cover. I hope you're really great, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.